Welcome. It's the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Back in the studio here with little All Points TV. How's everybody doing, man? It's a beautiful afternoon. I'm glad to be back in here. John, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. You've been busy all summer.
I can't hear you.
Okay. So you've been busy all summer.
No, still can't hear you.
Wow, that's weird.
Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Oh, it's weird. All right.
John's been cut off from the show. Can you hear me? Okay. Maybe I turned my ears down too much. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you know what? It was a little short there. As soon as
Yeah.
I touched it, it came on.
That's the way the thing is. I mean,
it's
electrical things do weird things.
Got some static going on.
But you've been had a busy summer.
All right, yeah. I think it has been a busy summer. You blink and it's gone. I'm way too freaking loud. All right. Nope, still too loud. Check. There we go. Let's move this away farther. How about that?
By the way, you got a challenge there, right? You got a challenge in the background. People got to find your the Compassion Club logo. Yeah, like they did the old Playboy, magazines. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you find the logo? Yeah. No, this is a picture of Flint from the 1920s. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, how amazing is it that we're coming up on 100 years since then? To me, it doesn't seem very long ago, and then on the other hand, it seems like an ancient history ago. It's interesting how fast things change and then how things remain the same.
Yeah, that streetcar you see right there too used to run different parts of the city, and General Motors acquired it and dismantled it because they wanted everybody to have cars.
Yeah.
But I mean, it used to run right here up all the way through the east side here, all through Delaware, turned around up on Dordt Highway and went back downtown.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
Wow.
pretty cool. I say
Didn't Flint at one time, I don't know if it was ever completed, but they were, at one time I think it was rumored they were building a subway system?
And I never heard of that one. No,
Okay.
I never heard of that. I got to be honest, but it would have been a good thing to have probably, but.
Yeah.
But GM being GM, they didn't
I
want
wouldn't
people,
like that either.
No.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I just thought I'd put that up there. I'll talk a little bit more about it later on, maybe. But yeah, it's cool stuff. Beautiful day, September 4th. Man, summer is almost over. We got 3 weeks left, and it's gone. We're all, of course, everybody I know mostly is back to school by now. Just had Labor Day weekend. Hope everybody was able to enjoy it, get out, get their last summer kicks on. I know we've been having a great time at the G3C. We've had a lot of things going on. I want to talk about that, get you guys up to speed, let you know what's going to be happening down at the club in the near future, and get you guys up to speed on all the news. Man, we've had a lot of stuff happen. Wasn't in last week, but there was certainly no shortage of events happening in the cannabis world. So we're going to talk about those today, get you up to speed. Like I said, so let's get this party started. We've got past events. I want to make sure I mention the backpack drive that we had. That was fantastic. We had some of our members step up and make this happen. It was initiated by them, and club sort of stepped in and helped out. But we had a tremendous showing. Just really thankful that our members are so tuned in on giving back and helping and being a part of the community in a positive way. It certainly was well received. We gave out almost, I think, 500 backpacks that were loaded with supplies and whatnot, and we had a lot of big, thank yous from all the people that were able to come up and get those. So thank you very much to everyone that helped out and came up. I really appreciate it. It was a beautiful day. Thankfully, we had great weather, and I'm sure it's probably something we're going to be looking forward to helping out with again. We also were joined by another group from Flint, and I believe it's called Flint Stop the Violence. So I want to give a special thank you to them who showed up and help support our event, and hopefully we can help work with them as well, maybe support some of the things that they do. But definitely check them out on Facebook or online. Flint Stop the Violence, great group of people, and we definitely want to say thank you for them showing up and helping us out with our event. So that was really cool. Getting to network with groups like Stop the Violence, groups like the Catholic Charities of Flint, and the soup kitchens. It's an honor to be allowed to be a part of that and to be seen as just a normal, caring member of society rather than like the crazy psycho pothead people. Because we're that too, but we're also regular people. And we like to help out, and we got kids and families and stuff like that. And we know what it is to have to go without, and you guys made it so that someone doesn't have to. So thank you, members. You guys rock, as always. And also continuing with that, our golf outing this past week was fantastic. Another great event out at Copper Ridge Golf Course. Had a fantastic showing. Our members kicked some butt, had some great golf. Again, a beautiful weather we were blessed with, And the food was absolutely amazing. As always, I always ran about the steak dinner. It was good this time too. The prizes were awesome. Loved the prizes. So we had a lot of different vendors kick in and help out. Members from our club, vendors from our club stepped up, helped out, helped sponsor this event. And I just want to say thank you very much. It was awesome. We were able to raise $3,500 for the Roar Charities Foundation. So special thanks to Mr. George Hernandez, who helps put this together, and also Abby Hernandez, who also helped make this a rocking event. And we look forward to it next year, that's for sure. So thank you very much for everybody who helped out with that. It was great to be a part of it. Even though I'm not a golfer, I still enjoyed it, had a great time. I think everybody else did as well. So thanks again, another awesome thing. Also, I want to mention our soup kitchen. Very well attended as of late. We're getting rid of all the food. Well, I don't want to say getting rid of, but there's enough people coming in to where, when the G3C shows up on their designated day, which is the third Tuesday of every month in the morning, people are excited about it because we bring it. You guys cook the food. You help donate to make this happen. You show up and serve, and people notice, and they're excited about it, and they're thankful, and I'm thankful to be able to be a part of that. So we got the soup kitchen going on. You guys rock that. Of course, we've got that coming up again. Adopt a Highway is right around the corner. Make mention of this. This is going to be the 21st of September. It's the final cleanup of the year. It's the third time we're going to be out there. It's going to be real easy. We're going to meet up at the club at 9 a.m., have some coffee, whatever, and then bust out to M13. If you already live out towards M13, just meet us out there. You don't have to come to the club first. But if you want to carpool, come to the club. We'll carpool, whatever. We'll go out there, we clean it. It's going to be pretty quick this year, I'd imagine, I hope, or this time I should say, because like I said, we've already done it twice. But it's our opportunity to get out there, show support in the county. And we've been doing this Adopt a Highway now for 10 years. So this is like tradition. So let's get out there and make this happen. If you can volunteer on the 21st, it's a Saturday morning. We really appreciate it. Like I said, 10 a.m. we start doing the work. 9 a.m. we meet at the club. So either way, whatever works for you, wherever you want to meet us at. It's between, Pearson and Beecher, or Potter and, I always get the roads mixed up. Forgive me. I think it's Potter and, Frog Lips. I can't think of it. But you know where it's at, M13. You'll see us out there with a vest, and hopefully we'll see you. All right? Next thing we got coming up here, I want to make mention of is our trunk or treat. This is second time we're going to be doing this. Looking really to blow this thing up this year. It went off amazingly last year, and I'm really excited about it this year. So I'm giving you guys plenty of notice. You can decorate your cars, get loaded up on candy, and we're going to blow this thing up. I'd like it to become eventually one of the best trunk or treats in the area. We certainly have an amazing facility to be able to do this at, and it's a great area. We've got a spot where people from the inner city can still make it out, and the people from the country areas can also make it in. And it went on, like I said, great last year, and this year it's going to be bigger and better than ever. That is going to be on October 27th. So it's not going to interfere with your Halloween digs. It's a Sunday. We do this still during typical daylight, evening hours. So it's still safe for everybody. But yeah, if you could mark your calendars now, October 27th, we'd really love to see you guys out there. It's going to be a fantastic time. And then right behind that, of course, the G3C Halloween party, which is going to be on Halloween, which is a Thursday, 31st. It's going to be a killer party. So you want to make sure you come to that. Of course, there's no extra charge. You just show up, be your member like you always are. That's the only thing. And it's going to be awesome. A Halloween party is going to be coming. So it is that time of year, folks. I know we're just wrapping up with the month of August, but the leaves are starting to fall and change color, and before you know it's going to be cold. We've already had some temperature drops as of late. Football has started. It's that time of year. So let's plan it out. Let's make sure we can have some fun while we're doing it. Halloween's going to be a great time, so mark your calendars, all right? Let's get into the news. I got a lot of stuff I want to go over with you. It's been a minute since I've been back here in the studio, and I want to get you guys up to speed, give you something to talk about, make sure you're aware of what's been happening. And without further ado, let's dive into this. So let me get to my marker here. I made the mistake of turning my phone off. Now I got to refine my spot. Hang on just a second. All right, here we go. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of touching on where we left off at the last podcast, which is testing. If you missed the last episode, I forgive you. All right. But at any rate, last episode we talked about Iron Labs being shut down here in Michigan. The state came in, shut them down, said they're going to have to go to a court basically to get their license back, accusing them of faulty test. Heavy stuff, man. Faulty test. So at any rate, of course, the rebuttal to this is we've got a Michigan senator who's quick to go ahead and propose some new legislation, and he wants tighter controls on testing. So let me try to pull this up for you. I'm still trying to find my spot. I apologize. Here we go. He is the chairman of Michigan Senate Health Policy and Human Services Committee. So that's a pretty powerful person with a powerful spot. He is calling for tighter controls on the state's medical marijuana testing lab. Senator Kurt Vanderwall, out of the Ludington area, Republican, issued a statement after state regulators recently announced the suspending of the license. His statement is that there have been too many recalls and headlines about marijuana products tainted with mold, pesticides, and other dangerous chemicals, and we cannot depend solely on testing facilities to make sure products are safe for human consumption, Vanderwall said in a statement. State regulators suspended the license, blah, 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 blah. Earlier in August, regulators warned the public that another medical marijuana lab called The Spot in Kalamazoo was also under investigation for inaccurately reporting results. Vanderwall said he doesn't think new laws are needed, just better enforcement. But hang on just a second. I thought I started this article by saying that he was calling for tighter controls on the marijuana testing labs. Anyways, going back to what he says, earlier this year, the MRA, which is the Marijuana Regulatory Agency, this is the agency in Michigan, issued a number of recalls of medical marijuana products that tested for heavy metals, mold, E. coli, so on and so on. Anyways, yeah, basically he's putting forth or trying to put together legislation to put tighter controls on the testing labs. And, obviously these labs have barely had a chance to get going under the new regulations through the MMFLA program. Some of these labs already existed prior to that, and they had to adjust. Iron Labs is one of those. And, there might be some adjustments that need to be made. And we've seen consistent, very strict enforcement, or I guess a reactionary behavior, I would say, from the state officials in regards to a lot of different things related to marijuana. And we're going to talk about a few more of those things today. But this is one of them. And, to say that these testing labs are completely innocent, I don't know. I'm not telling you the whole story because I don't know the whole story. But at any rate, there seems to be knee-jerk reactions from the state, maybe overreactions, if you will. And in the meantime, we are yet to see anybody from the actual patient field, people who are actually using this medication, that may or may not be tested accurately, that may or may not contain these things that they're talking about. We've seen zero complaints from that community. We've seen zero people show up at the hospital with things related to this. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and I'm not saying you don't need to be careful about your medicinal products, but I'm saying that there's a likelihood that the state's overreacting, such as suspending this laboratory's license in the manner that they did, and then to go back and even consider, further adding to the laws that they just got in place and haven't really had a chance to fully implement yet. I think it's drastic. I think it's overreaching, and I would say if this does come up further, we'll keep you in tune, of course, but this is something that I think that we want to push back against if it does come to fruition. So, anyway, that's the gist on that. That's the Senator Vanderwall. Mr. Vanderwall. Okay, tighter controls on testing. Next thing I want to talk about, you guys might have heard about this, Wild Bill's, the tobacco giant. You guys see his stores all over the state. He got the ixnay from the state for the second time, and this time it looks like they're dropping the axe. So at any rate, originally he had applied, I believe it was like 16 different licenses back when they still had the board, and the board shot them all down. We talked about that on the podcast. Now they went back through the appeal process. The board no longer exists, and the state, the MRA, basically, let me pull up the story here for you. State basically shot them down. One of the articles I was reading about, I might even mention it in this one here, that this group of people, I don't know if Wild Bill is one person or if it's a group of people. I imagine there's a few people that are probably involved in this business corporation. But they had invested or spent at least $350,000 in licensing fees alone. and to be told no. Now, of course, obviously the state has the right to make their decisions. I can only imagine the amount of money that this business has spent already on this investment. I'm sure it's in the millions when you think about the properties they purchased, the attorneys they had to pay, the processes that they've had to go through from the original application process to the appeal, so on and so forth. Huge amount of money spent to be shut down by the state. Wow. All right. And basically the reasoning behind that, the state said, is that they have, I'll put it in my own words, scrupulous character. But basically, I don't know if that meant they had some kind of prior convictions they didn't want to talk about in public, or, whatever. But basically the state said moral character type of thing. That's why they're getting turned down. And that's it. So it seems like it's the end of the road for Wild Bill. Wild Bill is certainly not the only large corporation out there was trying to sort of monopolize this industry as the MMFLA became active. We've seen other groups step in and do that successfully. It just appears that Wild Bill is not one of those people on the success list. So another one bites the dust. Let's move on here. Next interesting thing I saw, and you guys might already be aware of this. I certainly wasn't, but I thought this was interesting. I'm talking about chocolate and how chocolate actually can throw off your test results. So the science behind this, I'm going to cut to the chase so we don't have to go too far into the article here, but basically the science of what they think is happening, and maybe some of you guys can tell us what the reality is. The chocolate seems to have some fat in it, and we know that cannabis is fat soluble, if you will. Fat kind of absorbs the medicine. They're saying that basically the chocolate has the ability to absorb some of this, and because of that, it throws off the test results when they're trying to find out how much THC is in your chocolate brownie or chocolate bar or chocolate cake, whatever it is, containing your chocolate edible, of course, is what we're talking about. So that might be something to look out for. If you're buying Granny a chocolate edible and she wants something that's mild, she tells you, get me the 10 milligram because she thinks that's what she needs. There's still going to be some trial and error there, like there always is when it comes to sampling cannabis, but there might be a little bit more error involved because of this scenario. So it's just something to make you guys aware of. I don't think it's anything to be alarmed of. Of course, the regulators are going nuts because they can't figure out how to exactly pin this down and have accuracy and so on and so forth. And, unfortunately, sometimes they look at these things and they go so extreme that they'll say, okay, well, let's just ban all the chocolate. Which is, again, is there anybody going to the hospital because they ate one too many chocolate brownies? You know what I'm saying? Or what they do when they got to the hospital? They told them, here's a glass of milk, chill out. But at any rate, that's what I wanted to tell you about. Chocolate can throw off your test results, and watch out for your chocolate, okay? All right, next article I've got here is Washington teens are using less marijuana. Let me pull this article. I thought this was pretty cool. And you guys are probably well aware that the state of Washington has legalized cannabis. They've had medical cannabis for a long time, pretty liberal area. And what I'm basically saying is there's a lot of access to cannabis in Washington. You know that there's a lot of access to it here in Michigan. And this premise is that it's even more prevalent in Washington. So at any rate, Rand Corporation, which is pretty well respected, they took a recent survey on teen cannabis use since Washington has legalized weed and found that better data was needed to follow youth use, or maybe the data they got they didn't like. It says here, however, usage amongst 8th and 10th graders did go down, and use in 12th graders stayed approximately the same. It says the percentages weren't staggering, but substantial nonetheless. And I'm not going to get much farther into that article. You can read it for yourself. But at any rate, I think it does show that when we legalize cannabis, it's not necessarily going to start flooding into our schools and into our children's hands. That's not the case with alcohol. That's not the case with tobacco. It's not going to be the case with cannabis. And I think one of the things I think that is not mentioned in this article, but I think definitely deserves mention, is that cannabis for a long time has been on the forbidden fruit list, if you will. And I think that having something on the forbidden fruit list or having forbidden fruit is almost a motivating factor for a lot of people out there. I think that there's mystery behind it. There's a little bit of rebellion in there that people want to associate with and somehow gratify by taking part in using cannabis. And that's no longer exist. It's no longer cool that you have cannabis. It might be nice, but it's no longer the same type of thing. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I think that, the teenage years, the adolescent time, when people are growing up and they want to experiment, they want to rebel, they want to grow, they want to become an adult, they're going to lean towards things that they've been told, here's the line, and they want to cross it, just like they have since they were a baby and you told them not to touch the stove. It's no different. And so taking cannabis away from that and making it just, hey, it's a regular normal thing now, like beer or like tobacco. And students, I think young people, not students necessarily, but just young people look at it differently. And I think they look at it like, yeah, it's out there, and if I want it, I can have it. Big deal. Whereas before, that wasn't the case. So at any rate, I think that's something worth mentioning along with the other things that the RAND survey picked up on. And it does go to show that this is not a gateway to, youth use, so on and so forth. And I want to talk about that at length today because we're going to be talking about something else later on that is, falls right into this category. But at any rate, that's what's up with this survey. I thought that was important information I'd like to share with you. And, we're kind of past having to convince our neighbor or our family, for the most part, about cannabis. I mean, pretty much that argument at the dinner table in Michigan is done and over with now, whereas that argument is still going on in like 23 other states. So we have to remember that this is a sort of an evolution of social thought, and the growth happens at different times in different areas, if you will, and on different subjects. So at any rate, we are where we are at in Michigan, and I would like to see some numbers on Michigan in the future after we've had time for the program to get in place, after we've had time for commercial sales to occur, and we can study, like they did here in Washington. Basically, I think they've had legalization now for 3 years. So definitely enough time to collect some accurate info, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here in Michigan, but I have no doubt that we will mirror what's occurred in Washington. So good news for our youth, and I think it's important to know. All right, anyways, moving on here. Next story that I want to share with you guys is this one on the FBI and their warning that they put out. And I thought this was definitely something that we need to be aware of in Michigan. We've seen it happen in Michigan, and I think it's happening now, and I think it's going to continue to happen. And what I'm talking about here is just flat out corruption. And I'm talking about bribery. We obviously are seeing the expansion of corporate cannabis in Michigan. We've seen the passage of legislation statewide, which is rolled out to a local level. And across Michigan, we've had ordinances pass that directly affect people's ability to open up new businesses in this line of work. Your local municipalities are the gatekeepers, if you will, to the business in Michigan as far as cannabis goes. They hold the keys. And the FBI's warning is basically saying, look, watch out for your local officials getting involved in bribery scams and payoffs and so on and so forth in the medical marijuana industry. Let me pull this up for you. This was on Shutterstock. And just to give you a picture, I'm going to read some of this to you because I think it highlights the magnitude of what's possible here. So it says thousands of people are maneuvering to get a piece of what's expected in Michigan's $1.5 billion marijuana industry. Okay, now maybe that figure's not right. Maybe it's off by $500 million. Still talking about $1 billion here. That's a lot of industry, and of course it's not for one person. It's not like somebody won the lotto or there's the Warren Buffett in Michigan, but there's a lot of big players here going on. And basically it says there's an increasing number. This is from the FBI. They say there is an increasing number of states changing their marijuana legislation. The FBI has seen a public corruption threat emerge in the expanding cannabis industry. This is from FBI spokesman Molly Halpern, and she said on a recent podcast released by the FBI. And yes, you heard me right. The FBI does have their own podcast now. States require licenses to grow and sell the drug. We, of course, know that. Public officials can become susceptible to bribes in exchange for those licenses. So Captain Obvious here at the FBI is now rolling out important news that everybody should be already well aware of. But the fact of the matter is that it has occurred in Michigan. We've already seen people get in trouble for it, and it is still occurring. So don't be afraid to call out corruption if you see it. Some of these things have been averted because people were not afraid to stand up, to go to their local township hall at the monthly meeting that they have and say, BS, that ain't happening, and watch these guys get red-faced, double down, I didn't do that, and things change. All right. There was just a recent scenario of this, and I want to say it was in Warren. I might be mistaken on the township, but the board was basically called out by attorneys in court for not following the Open Meetings Act in regards to who was going to be able to get in line for a marijuana license. So they were essentially able to cherry pick behind closed doors who was going to get a license, or at least who was going to be in the running for a license. And obviously this is a big deal. So they got called out on the carpet. They're going to have to go back and redo this whole process in front of public, allowing the public to hear, allow the public to give input. Not that it's going to make a difference, but at least that's the way things should be done. I mean, that's the way things should be done here in America. That's how we're supposed to do things. Deals that involve our public officials, especially when it comes to licensing or who gets what, it's supposed to be done legitimately in the public view, not behind a closed door. All right, so anyways, the FBI is warning people of that. Well, there we go. Okay. Next thing I want to mention to you, the House bills. This is in Michigan. These are two House bills that were proposed. It's House Bill 4126 and House Bill 4127. These are involving medical marijuana, and it involves warning labels specifically for women that are pregnant and or nursing. And let me find this here. Give me just a second. Forgive me. I'll pull it up here. Hang on. You guys are probably reading it right now, aren't you? Okay. Oh, that's small. Okay, here we go. So this would warn pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers about the hazards of smoking pot. And these warnings would need to be added to the packaging of items sold in Michigan under legislation. And a House panel already voted on this and approved it. The House Judiciary Committee moved this through. It's not law yet, still needs to go through the Senate and so on, and before the entire House, I do believe. But at any rate, it did move through the panel, move through the Judiciary Committee. They like it. They think this is a good idea. They're basically going on saying that mothers-to-be can reach babies. The marijuana ingested by a mother-to-be can reach babies in the womb, causing low birth weight and brain development issues. And they're citing this, which is smoking pot while pregnant can be hazardous to your infant's health, which is an article you can apparently look up and check out for yourself. But Tom Albert, who's a representative, Republican in Lowell, shared the research showing this. He's the guy who thinks he knows what's up. 2 months ago, shared this information, introduced these bills again, 4126 and 4127. And basically, they're looking to add these warning labels onto the product, which I don't really have a problem with it. I kind of feel like, first of all, it shouldn't be limited to just a smoking product if the baby or the mother is really your health concern and marijuana is your concern as well. I would say, why aren't you labeling everything? But as far as when it comes to labels, first of all, a woman who is pregnant or breastfeeding is usually pretty aware of the fact that they have an additional responsibility to be concerned with what they're ingesting. And I don't think they're going to need an additional label to identify that. However, the people that are putting the products out, they might need to have a label in case something were to occur. Who knows? I'm not saying it would, but if it did, to protect them from liability. That I could see that happening. But having our government step in and have to create a law and pass it and so on and so forth, it's just knee-jerk regulation, and it's getting old. All right, our legislature, I believe personally, has way too much time on their hands, and jumps up to address any little issue that they personally feel attached to, or whatever it is, wherever it's coming from, motivationally speaking. But it's knee-jerk, reactionary legislation, and I don't feel that additional things like this put on whatever. I don't think they're necessary. I just think it's minutia. All right. Anyways, that's what it is. And also, I would also point out as well, and I'm certainly not a doctor, so don't take my word for this, but please look up the information that's available. There's a study that was done on Jamaican mothers, and obviously cannabis use prevalent throughout Jamaica. They don't take a break when they're pregnant. They don't take a break when they're breastfeeding, and their babies are great, healthy, strong babies. The mothers are healthy and strong. And you can check this out for yourself. So just do a little research, check it out. Jamaican mothers breastfeeding on cannabis. All right, and maybe we can help debunk some of this baloney that's being presented as fact. I'm tired of our legislators pulling out, at whim, whatever they feel can document their personal belief or their motivating factors for their bills that they're presenting, and whatever article they present is now gospel. As if and people don't even take the time to look at the information that was presented. They don't even bother to read the supporting evidence. They just take it at word. Oh, well, he's got something that says what he's saying is real, so it must be real. You know how stupid that is? Read the damn article. Look up for yourself. Make your own decisions. And this doesn't apply to just this bill or this scenario. This is something that needs to be done on everything. All right? And we should not be just letting our legislators present whatever they want as supporting factual evidence. I think there should be some sort of barrier on that. But at any rate, we need to legislate our legislators. All right, moving on here. Next story here, I want to talk a little bit about, let's see here. August 20th. Sorry, I got these dated for myself. Cook County. Okay, here we go. You guys know where Cook County's at? Chicago? Not that I'm an expert. That's what the article says. All right. Any rate, Cook County, and you guys understand that Illinois is moving through marijuana legalization, so on and so forth. But it seems like part of the process that would naturally go along with legalizing something that was previously illegal, to them, it's a little bit more natural than what it is here. But anyways, we'll get into that in a second. It says tens of thousands of cannabis convictions will be automatically expunged under a partnership between a tech nonprofit and Cook County prosecutors, part of an effort the state's attorneys Kim Fox characterized as righting the wrongs of the past. And this article is in the Chicago Tribune. Check it out for yourself. Fox said the collaboration with Code for America would help atone for prosecutors' role in an overzealous war on drugs. As prosecutors who were part of the war on drugs, we were part of a larger ecosystem that believed in the interest of public safety, that these were convictions that were necessary to gain, Fox said at a news conference on Tuesday. And the benefit of hindsight and looking at the impact of the war on drugs, it is also prosecutors who have to be able to be at the table to ensure that we are righting the wrongs of the past. The Illinois marijuana legalization bill, which takes effect January 1st, allows residents, blah, 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 you know what it does. Under the partnership with the county, the California-based Code for America will automate the process for Cook County convictions involving amounts smaller than 30 grams. Such offenses include misdemeanors as well as Class 4 felonies, the lowest category of felonies in Illinois. Code for America's program will sift through the state and county data to identify which records are eligible for expungement, then complete paperwork for prosecutors to submit to judges who can formally throw out the convictions. Code for America is a not-for-profit that will begin the work at no cost to the county, said Jennifer Pahica, the group's founder and executive director. So that's freaking awesome. All right, Illinois is on the ball. They're working with this not-for-profit. They're taking care of these people who are no longer criminals in the sight of society, and they're getting it done. And that's awesome. So let me go here to Michigan. I'll give you the story on that. Oh, there isn't one. we've already had our law. All right, we don't have a go into effect January 1st thing going on. We've got a when the state's ready to issue license thing going on. But at any rate, obviously it's going on. People are allowed right now to possess cannabis for adult recreational purposes, and yet there are people sitting in jail or a prison for the same thing. That doesn't make any sense. So why is Illinois able to get it rocking, and why is Michigan not? We're going to probably talk about why Michigan's not, because they're busy doing other crap right now, like I just mentioned before, what I'm about to get into. But at any rate, come on, man, this is ridiculous. If you're one of those people, or if that was one of your family members sitting behind bars right now for something that's legal, imagine how upset you would be. I mean, they'd probably be upset they ever went there in the first place, but imagine how upset you'd be now. For what? Because bureaucracy can't get its act together? It's preposterous. All right, anyways, moving on here. This was, next thing I wanted to talk about. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, seeks general public input or feedback on cannabis rescheduling. So this is kind of cool. The USA Food and Drug created a notice calling for general public responses in regards to the rescheduling of cannabis and various other substances, which are now placed directly under worldwide view. More especially, the FDA would like to learn about people's simple take. This isn't written correctly, I apologize. Simply take from abuse, what? Punishment perspective, trafficking and medical benefits of these medications and effective rescheduling the substances to their accessibility. The FDA stated they will consider these comments in their notice planning a reply to the World Health Organization in connection with diversion among these medications and their punishment obligation. That, in turn, will be making use of this input through the U.S. whenever it creates its suggestion for putting particular restrictions that are international, these drugs, and potentially upgrading global medication treaties that bar countries from legalizing specific substances. So at any rate, the FDA is obviously, starting to address this issue in a manner of, which really does need to happen, if it's going to be done right and done once and for all. And we've talked about that on the show before, where our country is basically under treaty through the UN to say that marijuana is legal, or illegal, and a bunch of other drugs as well. So if we want to legalize it legitimately as a country, take it off Schedule 1, make it an available product for the public as a country, we need to have that treaty ratified. And we need to allow other countries to do the same thing. So to save face, if you will, and not just say, hey, we don't really follow the UN, or we follow it when we feel like it, which is actually what we do anyways. But to save face, they should legitimately address these things, go through the channels, and it appears that the wheels are starting to move slowly. So the FDA is starting to work on this, and they're seeking some input. So now may be your time to tell the government what you actually think. Be careful, or they'll visit you personally to talk about that. All right, moving on here. Next thing I want to talk about, the Surgeon General warning. So while we go from a peak of light at one end, we are still realizing we're deep in the cave, and we've got a ways to go to dig ourselves out. So the Surgeon General put out a warning. Let me pull this up here for you. If I can find it. Nope, not that one. Oh, my apologies. Promise you I'm close. Hang on. Here we go. Surgeon General. My apologies. Here we go. Okay, so this was the latest Surgeon General warnings in regards to cannabis and a few other things. This was originally published on August 29th. And here we go. This is from your U.S. Surgeon General. So again, back into the cave. says, at a time when more than 30 states and the District of Columbia have legalized the use of marijuana for medical or recreational, the U.S. Surgeon General says no amount of the drug is safe for teens, young adults, or pregnant women. The quotes are, while the perceived harm of marijuana is decreasing, the scary truth is that the actual potential for harm is increasing, Surgeon General Jerome Adams said Thursday during a press conference to announce the new advisory. Survey shows that an increasing number of adolescents and pregnant women use the drug, blah, blah, blah. We just saw a survey that showed teens are not increasing, but at any rate, this is what the government's spitting out. Surgeon General told NPR in an interview that people are not aware of just how potent the drug can be. Once again, more reefer madness in their comments. This is what they said, literally for quotes. This ain't your mama's marijuana. The THC concentration in marijuana has increased threefold between 1995 and 2014, according to this report, and concentrated products can contain up to 75% THC. That's what your government agent is telling you. The higher the THC, the higher the risk, Adams said. Good grief. Anyways, yeah, Surgeon General. Young people who regularly use marijuana are more likely to show a decline in IQ, decline in school performance, more apt to miss class, Adams says. Frequent use of the drug can also impair a child's attention, memory, and decision making. In addition, it can be habit forming. Goes on to say nearly 1 in 5 people who begin marijuana use during adolescence become addicted. Adams says that's scary to me as a dad of a 15, a 13, and a 9-year-old. And then he goes on to talk about symptoms of marijuana dependency include irritability, mood and sleep difficulties, decreased appetite, cravings, restlessness, and or various forms of physical discomfort that peak within the first week after quitting and last up to 2 weeks, according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And of course we know the National Institute on Drug Abuse is the utmost authority on all things marijuana, being that they've been growing it for like 30 years and they still can't even get their cannabis above like double-digit potency levels. Give me a break. All right, Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar announced that President Trump is donating part of whatever, blah, 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 blah. Oh, here, to fund a digital media campaign to bring attention to the risk of marijuana use. He's donating $100,000. He said, anyways, the report says there's still a lot unknown about the risk of marijuana, and Fed officials say they support more local and federal research, blah, 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 blah. We've got basically no support from the president. He's still trying to fund propaganda against marijuana. We've got the Surgeon General spitting out stuff that is entirely not true. We've got the National Institute on Drug, NIDA. Excuse me, I'm forgetting their acronym, but we've got them, the only legal cannabis supplier, the only legal cannabis research institute facility, period, is NIDA as well. And it is just, it's like they have monkeys running the institute. And it's because their hands are tied. The federal government doesn't allow them to get a new stock for their cannabis that they do grow. They limit the research that they're allowed to do. They limit their production methods. So in regards to the actual people that work at NIDA, I don't mean to say that they're stupid, and I apologize for that impression, but I will say that the organization itself is just unfortunately being held down and not allowed to do what it could do. And it's been that way for like 30 years. It hasn't changed. Our government keeps it that way purposefully. Maybe we'll see a change to this. In fact, one of the other things that I did want to make mention, I think I just skipped over my report here. I saw it on here somewhere. Maybe it's next. Hang on. All right. But yeah, that's the Surgeon General's warning. And unfortunately, it's still chock full of propaganda. So you can't really expect to get much out of the federal government when it comes to cannabis. We need a drastic change. Okay. Let's see. Your next story I've got here is called EGLE, eyeing pot growers and processors for environmental compliance. Before I get into that, I did want to also point out, I saw an article on this. Maybe it's one of these later. I just don't want to spoil anything, but I do want to make sure I mention it. there is a department, one of the departments of the government is trying to change the law to at least address the ability to conduct research outside of just the NIDA limitations. So I wanted to say that before we moved into the next subject because I thought that was worth mentioning. And we do need to have universities be allowed to do research, and there has been some research that has been allowed here and there, but we need it to be allowed on a widespread level, not just for large pharmaceutical companies who can backdoor this and just pay for their way through, which we can talk about that too. But anyway, yes, there is a press to change that. Okay, moving back into EGLA. Prospective pot entrepreneurs in Michigan have to go through the state's MRA if they want to enter the legal cannabis, which which is a marijuana regulatory agency. The state issued a bulletin last week aimed at growers and processors outlining potential air regulations and other environmental regulations to which they may need to adhere to. So the EGLE is, now that I said that, I'm not going to be able to find what that stands for. I think it's environmental something, but that's you're probably looking for more detail than that. Somebody can probably tell me what this is. But at any rate, it's the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy. Okay, that's what it basically stands for. They issued the bulletin telling these guys, hey, there's a heads up here, there's other regulations you may need to be concerned with as far as environmental risk regarding your growing and your processing, what you're doing with your waste, your fume management or gas management, if they're using gases, like CO2 and stuff like this. They go on to say the distillation of oils from plants themselves is an industrial process using solvents and is regulated just like any other similar industrial process in the state with the same obligations as any other industry, said Jennifer Dixon, who's the air quality liaison in EGLE's Environmental Support Division. The state work group studied the environmental impacts of marijuana, found that odor from marijuana cultivation and processing is a major concern, along with other potential environmental impacts related to air, water, and waste. According to the bulletin, every stationary source of an air pollutant is required to obtain an approved permit to install before installing the equipment, although some exemptions may apply and renewable operating permits are required if the activity or process has the potential to emit at or above the major source threshold for any air pollutant. So at any rate, the environmental part of our state, which is again the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, obviously have the ability to step in and regulate what businesses do, especially in regards to environmental concerns. And they put out their bulletin just recently to all these newly licensed processors and growers, telling them, hey, look, we're going to be on the lookout. Make sure you're managing your waste, your air quality, and so on and so forth, your business practices. Make sure you're handling those in a compliant manner. Make sure you have the permits, and make sure that we have all the money that we're supposed to. All right, maybe they didn't say that, but I'm sure they mean it. All right, anyways, another testing concern I want to talk about. This was recalls, the latest recall that's been issued, marijuana contaminants, possibly contaminated with heavy metals. 4 medical marijuana products are under recall from Michigan regulators as an ongoing investigation into a testing lab revealed the products contain unsafe levels of pesticide and heavy metals. Heavy metal! Oh, sorry, it was too loud. It's never too loud. All right, the Marijuana Regulatory Agency issued its largest recall to date, warning patients Friday that the 4 products have been sold in provisioning centers in 15 cities across Michigan. Officials are warning the products could cause coughing, wheezing, decreased pulmonary function, nausea, vomiting, abnormal heart rhythm, and damage to blood vessels. According to a press release from the agency, however, no adverse reactions from consuming these products have been reported to state officials. All of the products were tested at Iron Labs in Walled Lake, which is the same lab that officials suspended the license of on August 16th. After alleging the lab was providing unreliable results and misreporting information. The lab president, blah, 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 said no way, Jose, and they're fighting it out. The products under recall are RSO 1G Syringe Monster X, Glue Buds, Here, I should probably tell you what they failed for. Sorry. RSO, the 1G, Syringe Monster X. Again, these were sold at 16 different centers across Michigan. RSO 1G failed testing on May 2nd for chemical residue. Somebody smarter than me is going to have to read this. Bifenazate. Kevin, what does that mean? Sorry. Glue buds. Failed testing on June 14th for heavy metal. Cadmium. That's what it was. Next thing was 1G Savage Signature OG Butter Concentrate. It failed testing on July 17th for heavy metal. Arsenic. That's not good. That's not good at all. Okay, 1G Platinum Vapes. Diamond OG Cartridge. Field testing June 25th for heavy metal. Total, it said total chromium. It says, for a full list of recalled products, the batch number affected in the provisioning centers that sold the products, click here. You can check out this article on, let me find it for you, MLive. All right, it was by Amy Biocchini. Check it out. It was titled Marijuana Contaminated with Heavy Metals, Pesticide Recalled and Testing Lab Investigation. So anyways, I want to get those out to you, let you guys know about that. If you know anybody that has those products or has been talking about them, you might want to watch out for yourself. Yeah. Definitely. I do think it's weird, though, that they're rolling out the recall. And the recall, this was the article I'm reading to you, granted, was from August 31st. It's not that old. Some of those recalls in that article were from June. Like, what are you waiting for, dude? Of course it's been used by now. If anybody was going to call and complain, it'd have been back at least in July. Come on. What's the point of having recalls if by the time you put the recall out, the product's already been consumed? That's pretty dumb. What's the point of having this at all? Okay. GOP senator wants a hearing. Man, that keeps popping. I apologize. I don't know if that's hitting your ears as bad as it does mine. I will stop yelling. I'm sorry. All right. GOP senator, he wants a hearing. This is kind of disgusting because Captain Numbnuts here, and I'm talking about Senator John Cornyn. Senator John Cornyn. He's from Texas. All right. A Republican from Texas. He acknowledged in a recent interview that the cash-only business is a real threat. It's a real threat. But the senator would like a hearing first on the public health consequences of cannabis, of ending cannabis prohibition, before we advance legislation to resolve the financial services problem, he says. So, unfortunately, guys like this hold a lot of power, and they control channels in government, and when you have people like this who just refuse to acknowledge any of the information that is incredibly easily accessed, people like this shouldn't be in charge, for one, okay? That is a belligerent viewpoint that is, at this point now, it is no longer okay to claim ignorance when it comes to things in general about cannabis. We have had this for too long in our country. It has been for too long a mainstream topic, and at this point, for you not to know things about it when you're sitting there in charge of making decisions, and the only reason you don't know is because you haven't taken the time to personally investigate, that is not an excuse. It is not an excuse, and this gentleman is chock full of them, and is basically saying we need to talk about this some more. We need to talk about the public health consequences of legalizing cannabis for adult recreational use. What's that going to do for everybody? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, the cat's already out of the bag. All right, we have multiple states right now where it's already legal for adult recreational use. It's legal in a whole hell of a lot more states for medicinal use. The cat is well out of the bag. The conversation for that should have been had well over a decade ago. Probably it should have been had, it should have never had to happen, really. But at any rate, this guy is way off base, and unfortunately, he's still in charge, he's still in power. He's the senator from Texas, John Cornyn. And there we go. This was an interview that he did. He wants to hold a hearing before the Senate caucus on international narcotics control, which he co-chairs. And specifically wants to address high THC concentration products. So it appears that he has some knowledge. He's able to mention, he's able to enunciate a particular genre of the cannabis products that are out there. So the guy has some knowledge. To me, he's stalling for whatever reason. It's a front. It's baloney. It needs to stop. And people like this need to be ignored or pushed aside. And unfortunately, he's co-chair on this committee. So he will control whether or not this bill or these things move forward. He'll control whether it even ever goes up for a vote in the Senate. And our Senate continues to be a blockade for a lot of change to this country. And we, as voters, continue to vote these numbnuts in term after term after term and somehow think that things are going to change, and they're not. These suckers get in for 6 years. So it's already long enough. And yet we let them continue to do stuff like this. And then, oh yeah, they're so great and wonderful. All right. Anyways, moving on here. I wanted to talk about vaping because our state governor apparently has put on her dictator hat and decided that vaping products in Michigan should now be prohibited, period. And I'm not talking about cannabis vaping products. She is talking about tobacco vaping products, specifically ones that are flavored. Apparently, she feels that these are too tempting for children and that children have too easily accessed this product and that it is destroying our youth. And she is under the impression that she has the power and the ability to make up her own emergency situation and then act on it by making all of these products now illegal, no longer available for sale, no longer allowed for consumption. That is pure dictatorial behavior, and it should be absolutely unacceptable in our country. Absolutely unacceptable. I don't think impeachment is strong enough. I think that is traitorous to how our country is set up.
But don't you know that everything's acceptable if you got a D after your name? That's
Well,
what it is.
and we can argue red, blue, or whatever. I don't give a damn what party they're from. When you have a politician step in and infringe on people's personal rights without even allowing that to go through due process, that is horrendously authoritarian, and it should be considered treasonous. I think it's enraging personally, and I don't even use those products. But for Democrats, like you want to bring it up, oftentimes seem to be champions of my right, my body, that kind of a thing. They normally seem to champion personal choice. They've often been friends of ours in the cannabis movement and allowing people to make that choice for themselves, for medicinal purposes, and now for recreational purposes. So I don't think it's representative of the party. I think it's representative of the individual, and I think that those politicians should be held absolutely 100% accountable for their actions, because that is one person who's trying to have that happen. And whether she is fronting for a group out there or some lobbyist or whatever, I don't know. I don't care. When you're the one who steps up and says, hey, I should be able to have the right to tell you what you can or can't do, that is not how this country is supposed to work. So, yeah, I'm pissed off about the vaping thing. You should be too, whether you use the vape or not. Is it a problem for kids? Hey, man, there's a lot of problems for our kids. Okay? I'm not saying it isn't. It very well may be. And when things are, sweet to the touch or to the taste, when they are visual appealing, there's going to be things out there that are going to be both of those to both children and adults. And sometimes they're not for kids. Take a walk down your local liquor store and tell me that those bottles don't represent something that would be appealing to a youth or to a minor. Bottles that are made in, fancy glass shapes, and they've got glitter in them, and they've got sparkles, and they're even marketed to youth. And yet we don't have a problem with that, but yet we're going to go after vaping. There's a lot of problems with this. But I think fundamentally, the biggest problem with this is that is not how our country is supposed to work. And I think that we should address that as a community wholeheartedly. And not just a marijuana community, but as a citizenship You know, when government feels that it's okay for them to step in for your personal safety and start telling you what you can and can't do, they've gone too far. They've done lost the Wheaties. All right. All right. Another thing that we need to talk about. I guess I'll go into this now because we're talking about crazy things. I wanted to mention this. Danny Trevino. Danny Trevino was convicted, I think a little less than a week ago, just a bit within a week, whatever. Danny was convicted. Danny is going to prison for 11 years. The article that I read on him stated that Danny Trevino is going to be serving a minimum of 11 years. 11 years in a federal prison. And what did Danny do? Danny pushed the line. All right? I watched Danny. I've met Danny. I've seen him from the beginning, what he did. He pushed the line. And he pushed the line. I don't want to get into, for whatever reason, but he was one of the first folks out there to say, hey, this is a new opportunity. I read the law this way. Nobody's telling me different, and I'm going to go about doing it. And he ran up against a lot of roadblocks. He tore those down, and he kept moving forward. And then he paid the price for doing it. So a lot of you out there could say, thank you, Danny. You kind of paved the way for a lot of different things. And I think also some of the back blow that we've seen in Michigan in terms of the state stepping in and becoming over-regulatory are in part due to people or actions like what Danny did as well in pushing the envelope and having knee-jerk reactionatory legislation be introduced and ultimately passed. So did Danny bring it on himself? Yeah, I would personally, in my opinion, he did kind of bring it on himself. But I want to be the first person to point out, and I know I'm not the first person to point this out, that the sentence does not match the crime. It doesn't even come close to matching the crime. This man is now being incarcerated for 11 years. 11 years. He's got family. You probably saw the picture. If you didn't, look it up on MLive of him giving his daughter a kiss as he walks off to the correctional facility. This is sickening. And I, even beyond that, even if I didn't care about Danny or marijuana or your freedom or anything else, I'm pissed off as a taxpayer that I got to go pay for this guy to sit in a cell for the next 11 years over something that's now considered legal. All right? What Danny did, people are getting licenses for today. That's it. That is a fact. You can't dispute it. What he did, people are getting licensed for today, and he is going to prison for it, and they are going to business meetings about it. So it is unjust what has happened to him, and it needs to be corrected. And unfortunately, he is going to be sitting in a cell while we wait, while we talk about it, while we go on smoking, while we go on talking about our business, while we go on, doing our things. He's going to be forgotten. And he's going to be sitting there on his own alone. And a lot of us could be sitting in that cell with him, but we're not. We had the grace of God, or we had the grace of our local prosecutor, or the grace of common sense to not push the line as far as he did. Whatever it may be, you got lucky and you're not there. And Danny is there. He's sitting in there right now. So Danny is a hero in my book. I do believe that he brought some of that on himself, but I do in no way feel that he deserves what he got. Take away his ability to play the game, slap him on the hand, fine him, whatever. But incarcerating him for any length of time is absolutely preposterous. He hurt no one. All right? There was never anybody who was hurt by Danny's operations. He never had any, to my knowledge anyways, he never had anybody get robbed, mugged, hurt, medicine made sick, whatever. I never heard anything other than Danny was getting in trouble for having another business. So if there were other factors and I didn't know about it, oh well, I don't care. It doesn't make any difference in my mind. A man should not be going to prison for trying to be a part of a marijuana industry. So unfortunately, yes, we need federal change. And when I talk about that, it's not like some sort of off in the future, distant thing that would be nice to have so we can all just get along It's because there are more important factors going on right now, today, that need to be addressed, that this would change, that this would directly affect, that this is completely 100% unjust and should be enraging to every one of us out there as Americans. Just like you should be enraged over your governor telling you what you can and can't do with your personal body. So I hope everybody had a great Labor Day. I hope everybody was able to enjoy this wonderful country that we have. But it is our responsibility to make sure that it retains its original nature of being a country that is for the people, by the people. And whether it's a republic or a democracy or an oligarchy or whatever, we still have a lot of power as individuals when we join together. And so things like this, maybe that's what we need to propel us to ask for change. I think of John Sinclair, who was one of the first people right here in Michigan, first folk to be impacted by our federal marijuana laws, first person to highlight the preposterousness of them. And thankfully, John Lennon came in and really made it known. But it's the same thing. It just happened again. Except this time, instead of a man getting 1 year for a joint, this man gets 11 years for a business. So that's what's up. That's where we're at. One more article I want to share with you. I thought this was kind of interesting. You can look this up. There's been quite a few about this, so I don't want to talk about it too much or for too long, but it's about Michigan communities. Part of the recreational law is that Michigan communities have the ability to say yes or no to recreational marijuana businesses. All right, they can't tell you if you can use it or not, but they can tell you if you can set up a shop. And with licensing coming online soon, Michigan will soon be starting to accept applications for these marijuana recreational businesses. In order to have that work, you must have your municipality have an ordinance for you, for that business, okay? And 50% of the municipalities in Michigan, actually more than 50%, have already said, no, we're not doing it. We're not going to have it here. We're not writing an ordinance. And that right there will eliminate the possibility of a recreational business being licensed by the state in that area. It won't happen. They can't do it by law. So, will there be change coming in the future as these communities wake up and go, hey, did you hear about such and such township? And they collected so many fees, and now they're collecting this and that and the other, and next thing you know, they got a shiny new fire truck, and the mayor's got an extra day off at the golf range, and the secretary's got a new car. Whatever. I don't mean that. I'm just saying, like, there are benefits to having these marijuana businesses in your community. They provide jobs, they provide tax revenue, and they're not something that you need to be concerned with as far as impacting your youth or sort of bringing down the moral aptitude or fiber of your community. That's not how this works. All right, these people are not what you think they are if you're the opposition. Look at what I pointed out earlier about Washington. Teens are using less cannabis since it's been legalized for adult recreational use. So communities in Michigan, hopefully they'll wake up and realize, allow this to be more prevalent. It is going to create certain areas around the state where, well, this is a dry county or this is a dry township, and you got to go, to X, Y, and Z or over there to ABC or whatever to get your marijuana. And guess what? That's where they're going to go. That's where the money's going to go. It's where the jobs are going to go. It's where the taxes are going to go. And the communities that don't step up or don't want to have an involvement in this are simply going to lose out. And you can look around Michigan and see communities that have lost out. All right. This was Flint back in the 1920s, and we gave up a lot of things so that we could have a lot of things. But I guess one of the things I wanted to address, if you will, and this doesn't really have to do with marijuana. It has to do more with us as a community, Genesee County. And, one of the things that really bugs me when I go to other areas, especially, areas that aren't that far away, places that are still here in Michigan, and just walking around the street, a lot of times you can tell there's a difference in what people think or how they feel about their community. And what I mean by that is real simple. You can visually see it. It's very easy to see. For one, there's not trash all over the place. People don't throw their stuff or litter on the ground, because number one, they'd be the only asshole in the community doing it, and everybody would probably point the finger and say, please clean that up. But number two, they actually care. They're like, hey, I like seeing my place clean. I like having a nice thing. This is my home. This is where I live. I want to take care of it. I want to have some pride. I want to show some gratitude for the things that I have and the place that I live in. I want to raise my kids in something that I can be not just proud of, but something that I can have some hope in for them. And then when I look at this picture of Flint back in the 1920s, when they had look at that. They had a rail car back then. That's pretty cool. Mass transportation, and what we would consider today almost a modern advancement for the city of Flint, but really it's not modern at all. It's almost 100 years old. We're nearly at 2020, and here we are. We've got a broken cobblestone street with buildings that are, falling apart and garbage everywhere. And, I'm not saying that it's your responsibility to go in and fix up Flint yourself. It's not any one person's responsibility, but it is your responsibility to take care of your own freaking garbage. It is your responsibility to smile at your neighbor instead of scowling and being worried. It's your responsibility to look out for your common man at the grocery store, whether it means holding the door open or maybe not trying to cut somebody off in traffic. It's just about having a little bit more care about what we do. And it's not because we want to have nicer things or because we want to brag about where we live at. It's because we want to enjoy where we're at. We want to have some ownership in where we're at, and we want to have a future at where we're at. So, this is ours. This Genesee County, it is our place, and nobody else is going to make it better or worse but us. And we can go forward. In this case, unfortunately, looking back would be a go forward right now. But we can go forward. But when you got somebody who fixes up a home and then they go home at night, and when they come back in the morning, it's torn back down to pieces because somebody went and scrapped the damn thing. That's what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff, and it's stuff like that, and it's the person who drives down the road and tosses their McDonald's bag out the window because they don't care. We go down, like I said, we've been cleaning the Adopt a Highway now for 10 years. That's 3 times a year. And yeah, the number one thing that we pick up is fast food trash and stuff from gas stations. So this isn't things that just blew out of your car window. It's not stuff that just got loose from somebody's trash can and went ticking down the road. It's careless people who don't give a shit about where they live. And you should be ashamed if you throw something on the ground like that. So, and it's not just about being a litter bug and caring for Mother Earth. It's about having a little bit of pride and a little bit of hope that things can be better. You know what I mean? So at any rate, I'd encourage you to be that positive change in your community. You don't have to be the warrior that, everybody rah-rahs behind, but just the little things. Showing up, showing that you care, putting your best foot forward, putting a smile on your face, having a little bit of community always at the forefront of your mind, instead of, hey, F you, man. You know what I mean? Like that. We're so ready to defend. We get so ticked off so easily today, and there's so many things that tick us off already. When you wake up in the morning, I think a lot of times people wake up mad because there's just a lot of things that eat at people all day long, and we're not getting any help from these electronic devices because a lot of times people pass over the positive stuff or whatever, but you just kind of get eaten at, and so it's hard. It can be tough to stay positive, to keep your chin up, but when you put a little effort in, you get a little bit of gratification back. So remember that. You know what I mean? Put a little bit something in, and you get something back. All right, I'll get off the soapbox, move on here. I want to say thank you to John for being back in the studio here. I really appreciate it, letting me come in and rant and ramble and give you guys the news. I want to say thank you to all our members who have been showing up at all these fantastic events and keeping it real and keeping us involved in the community, showing that we care, making a difference, spending your extra time to get up on your day off and do something, or to double up your work at home so that you could go spend a little extra time over here doing this and that. I see that. I know what that's all about, and I want to say thank you. So I appreciate that. Every one of you who does that, who donates the extra bucks when you didn't have it, or even when you did have it, whatever. It doesn't go unnoticed. and people do appreciate it. So thank you very much for being with me. Make sure you catch the podcast. Make sure you get down to the show. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's the benefit of smoking weed. So you guys do your thing, I'll do mine. And catch me here next time on the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Make sure you check out allpointstv.com on YouTube. Hit that click subscribe. All right, check it out. Thanks, guys. Catch you next time. Bye.